I corrected the Baltimore
Yes.
last night.
All right, let's get it going, everyone. How are you all doing today? Are you sure? Okay. So first and foremost, thank you all for joining us today. My name is William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the initial digital equity coordinator for Baltimore City, and now something that's not that. It's the community impact manager for Baltimore City. Yes, that is what I am. We are very happy to have you all here today, and to make sure that we set the tone in the welcome to understand why we're here. As many of you all may have noticed, there have been a few changes in the digital equity landscape, particularly at the federal level. We may go into those changes a little bit deeper later, but don't forget that many of us work for the government, so that might look weird.
I don't, I'll say whatever you want.
And so it's really important because those of us in this room and those of us who are on their way and those of us joining online, the hybrid option, there's a lot of work that has gone into making sure that what we are doing is beneficial to the communities that we serve, and that we've been looking for sustainability and resiliency this entire time, and there have been a lot of changes. I apologize that I did not do something appropriately. My name is William Honolulu Jr. I'm an African-American male around average, I think I'm average height. I think it's average. And I'm cute. So that's it. So as we introduce ourselves, please make sure that you identify who you are and what you look like for those of us who are visually impaired. Cool. And I wanted to make sure I modeled that, but I forgot initially. I got excited because all of you all are here, so I just went in. So as we have this conversation about the changes in the federal ecosystem, and well, in our ecosystem that are led by the federal government in general, it is a really good opportunity for us to sit down and figure out what we're doing ourselves. Figuring out how many of us have been dealing with these challenges for the last few months and have made some adjustments and have made some plans to make other adjustments. And it's really important that we all kind of, at least if not be on the same page, at least understand where we're all coming from and how we're moving forward. I do want to say big shout out to the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation and Gretchen LeGrand, one of our panelists. This space is beautiful, it's centrally located, and she got you food.
Right.
Yep. Okay, there you go. There it is. Okay. And for those of you all who aren't here, the food is wonderful, and I'm sorry that you're not here. Little bit, just a little.
Historical significance of this building.
Ooh, you want to do that part?
I want you to do that.
No, we don't.
You don't?
No, we don't want me to do that part.
I can do that.
Okay, so when we go around the introductions, you can do the historical significance of this building. How would you put me on? Okay, we have a couple of things just to make sure we know. Restrooms. Restrooms are outside the door. In this next room, there's a blue kind of curtain, see-through, kind of a curtain, but it's on the other side of that. When you're in the kitchenette area, on the other side of the blue partition in the kitchenette. Please make sure you help yourself to food and drink as we're going along. Again, make sure that you identify yourself for those of us who are visually impaired. And at the end there, you should have received a very quick evaluation, because I'm not trying to ask you a whole bunch of questions, but an evaluation just to give us a sense how you felt about what we're doing today. Okay. Now I have the privilege of introducing our panelists. The first on my far end is Ms. Marguerite Woods. Marguerite is a blind Black woman and longtime advocate for older adults and accessibility in Baltimore City. She serves in leadership roles within the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland, the Maryland Accessible Telecommunications Initiative, and the Baltimore City Health Department's Local Improvement Coalition. Through her work with community organizations and art accessibility initiatives, Marguerite is dedicated to uplifting and empowering people with disabilities. Marguerite.
Hello, hi everybody. Hi, how are you? So just so you know, just for me, because I don't see at all, I'm totally blind. It's really interesting to be able to speaking with people and not knowing what they look like. So A lot of times when questions are asked, people will nod or raise their hand. So I just ask that you say something to give me a clue about what's going on in the world. And I would really appreciate that. So I am Marguerite Woods. As William said, I'm an African American woman. I go by the pronouns of she, her. And I am an old adult. I am Black. I am bald. And for all intents and purposes, I think because all of you are beautiful, I feel like I'm beautiful too.
Our next panelist is Gretchen LeGrand. Gretchen is the Senior Program Manager for Digital Equity at the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation. Her work focuses on affordable broadband solutions, digital skills training, technology, workforce development, and nonprofit capacity building programs. And she's going to share the historical significance of this building.
Yes, hi everybody, I'm Gretchen LeGrand. I'm welcome to the foundation. I am a white woman with shortish, curly brown hair in my mid-40s. And I'm wearing a green blazer. So the building was where the old Afro-American newspaper was headquartered, newspapers I should say, and it had been vacant for a while, and in 2016, I believe the foundation acquired it. It opened in 2017, I looked it up. So it's been a beautiful renovation. It's a great location here in central Baltimore, and so thank you all for making the trip out.
Cool. Thank you very much. Our next panelist is Ms. Kenya Osley. Kenya serves as the Director of Broadband and Digital Equity for Baltimore City, where she leads the city's efforts to expand equitable access to high-speed internet and digital resources. With a strategic focus on infrastructure development, public-private partnerships, and community engagement, Kenya is guiding Baltimore's transition into a more connected and inclusive future, and she signs off on my timesheet.
Man, I think your last one was late.
But you see, this is, okay, we're gonna talk.
Okay, so I am Kenya Osley. I am 5'1.5", 5'5" with my fro. I have short curly gray hair, a multicolored top. And I'm wearing black glasses. Okay, that's good. What else would you say?
Just a little bit about that. You happy to be here?
I am, we've been doing this for a few years now out of the Baltimore City Office of Information and Technology. I learn something new every other week. And I'll be very transparent. A lot of what I've learned from folks in this room. When I'm looking around, a lot of what we've learned about digital equity, I have learned from the folks in this room. I am super excited that you all are here. I think that this is a timely and important conversation, and I'd love for you all to hear more about what we all are doing, and then hear from you what you're thinking about in terms of next steps as we are in this political environment.
Cool. And the gang. Always there. And the last panelist is Mickey Wolf. Mickey is a community builder and equity-driven social entrepreneur. He is CEO of Dent Education, a nonprofit running paid innovation programs in Baltimore with youth to build entrepreneurial mindset, social capital, and innovative careers. He has also co-founded the Baltimore Youth Innovation Coalition to strengthen an ecosystem of youth innovation organizations.
Thank you. Great to be here with y'all. Sorry for running a bit late. I'm Mickey Wolf. I use he, him pronouns. I am a young white man with maybe a beard that's a little too long right now. I've got some clear frame glasses that may or may not give off a hipster kind of vibe. And I'm wearing a blue kind of checkered long sleeve shirt. And yeah, really excited to be able to be in this conversation with you all. I think it's really heartening to be in this room, to see a lot of familiar faces, and I think that in this moment where so much is shifting, and to be able to be in Baltimore, where we're a city with a mayor who's dedicated to continue to do this work, and a group of people that recognized for a long time that the superpower that exists in Baltimore is within our community, and I think that the way that our communities come together and collaborate with one another is really powerful. It's great to see different partners in the space, and some of the work that we've been doing with this digital equity fund is a reflection of that. So excited to jump into that with y'all today.
Cool, and the game. So let's just kind of jump into some questions. Marguerite, I'm going to start with you. As we're seeing the shift in the federal conversation, moving away from concepts of equity and inclusion into some of the language like opportunities and things of that nature, sometimes in that transition, there are opportunities, or there may be a cause for some of our constituents to feel abandoned and left behind because of that change or emphasis. How is the industry your industry and the organizations that you represent or you're a part of, how are they adapting to the changes, and what's happening from your perspective?
Wow, that's a really good question.
Oh yeah, that's how we started here.
Yeah. So first of all, because I'm very connected to the National Federation of the Blind, and I'm emphasizing the word "of" because it's run and governed by blind people, which is very significant because many organizations are for the blind, and so that's huge. We've been around since 1940, and we see blindness as a characteristic and not the main event of your life once you get tools and skills to manage. And we've been, an advocacy organization for many, many years. And so we've not taken a lot of funding from government sources because we want to be able to speak our minds. And we don't want to be threatened by that. But a lot of our members are receiving benefits as a result of government funding. And for an example, ILOB, which is independent living for older blind individuals, their money has completely dried up. And so for the past few years with DIMA, because a lot of people forget to say the A part, which is the accessibility, which is very important to me in my community. There's a real lull there, and we're sort of scrambling, trying to figure out how we can best address this. And so people are having conversations, we're having meetings, individuals are taking up the mantle and trying to work with groups of people to share the knowledge that they have to help older adults who are losing vision or have lost vision be able to access the kinds of devices that we need in order to be able to communicate with the larger community. And we're also trying to incorporate the youth of our organization with the older adults so that there's a collaboration between the two. And I think fostering that is going to be a major part of how we move forward. And of course, we're involving philanthropists and any and everybody else that wants to support us moving ahead.
Christian, you want to respond?
Well, wow, where to start with that one? I think from the philanthropic sector's point of view, there's a lot of concern, obviously, at the shifts in federal funding and where money's sort of being frozen or taken away. Concern that there's just not enough money in philanthropy to cover the difference there. And so I think there's been a lot of conversations going on around what to prioritize and how to prioritize. I don't know that anybody has any good or clear answers yet. I mean, I think things are still so unclear with what's gonna end up shaking out once things work their way through the courts. And but I think there's preparation for certain eventualities that are kind of taking place now, or those discussions are anyway. I think that's there's nothing.
Okay. Can you?
So The Baltimore City Office of Broadband Digital Equity was seeded with ARPA funds, right? Got $30 million in ARPA funds. The head of the Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs, if you have any ARPA funds from the city, you know that MORC is the office in the Mayor's Office of managing those funds. Well, Shemaya Kearney was the director, she's now the deputy city administrator. But early on in her tenure, she said to anyone who would listen, ARPA money is seed money. Right? If you create something new with ARPA funds, you gotta figure out how to sustain post-ARPA. So we were already thinking about life after ARPA, right? But now we're thinking life after ARPA in an environment and a city that is not, how do I say this? That has not been a favorite of folks in Washington. And so this is double whammy. To an earlier point, we knew when we started off that we could not do this work alone. That's why we created the Digital Equity Fund. We knew we could not do it alone. We knew that we had to focus and invest in those organizations that are on the ground level. Those organizations, many of you all are in this room now, right? So or watching through our owl. This is a new owl. I'm so excited about the new technology, y'all. But we knew this going in. I feel very blessed and grateful that we have a mayor and a governor that's still talking about equity. Like, we have not gotten the charge from the mayor to change the name. We are still very much equity focused. And so in that regard, I feel like we're in a really good space. Moving forward, I think, especially as the philanthropic community braces itself, they were already braced to respond to post-ARPA, how do you sustain yourselves? But moving forward for our office specifically, I spend all of my time, well, no, because I do have to sign timesheets. I spend most of my time thinking about revenue generating activities. To be clear, I am in a position where I can do that, right? So I'm spending what we did with our ARPA funds, we spent the bulk of our ARPA funds on capital investments, many of which we can monetize, we can lease. So going into this, we were already thinking about what was going to happen afterward. And I think there may be some opportunities for others to start thinking about those revenue generators. And if not, I will tell you, that's only on the infrastructure side. That we are all here now, not because of the infrastructure side of the team, but because of our program side of the team. How we continue to do that work is going to have to be through partnerships, collaborations, sponsors who cover I didn't mean to eat all the grapes, but sponsors who cover the food. But moving forward, we have to get creative and we have to work collaboratively. Mickey.
Yeah, I think it's great to be able to hear that perspective from you, and I think that is probably reassuring for a lot of us doing the work in the city that, we can kind of continue to do the work with the same mission that we set out to go about doing the work. I think broadly in the education landscape, people have been shifting more and more to workforce development as their approach as a whole. I think there's quite a few education organizations that probably talk a lot more about workforce development in 2025 than you did in 2020 or 2021 or, kind of in those earlier times. And so I think that with that, there's some opportunities for smaller nonprofits like, Dent, how we actually got into the kind of earn to learn programming model from Access. We had young people that were like, we love what you're doing at Dent. We want to continue to, build our entrepreneurial ventures or learn these maker skills or kind of build tech skills, but we need to go make money and we're gonna go work a job at Burger King. And so kind of, we wanted to think about how could we end that false choice that so many of our young people in Baltimore face, which is work a job, earn now, or do a skill building program, build skills and career for the future. So that's how we kind of started down that, earn to learn program. And we're lucky to be in a city in Baltimore that has youth works and like this long history of summer jobs that so many of our organizations work with. I think that shift from education to workforce also gives people opportunity. Not that everyone is going to choose to participate in federal funding. We did not have federal funding, but we actually built from what we had done with this grant, which we partnered with the Digital Harbor Foundation's Tech Lab to, to launch our programming. That was a part of the digital equity funding. And we actually applied to a Department of Labor grant in November, which we did not receive, which is probably fortunate because who knows whether we would ever have actually seen that money. But it was kind of an opportunity to say what we'd started with this digital equity funding also had applications to the broader kind of workforce development landscape. And I think some of those opportunities will still exist for nonprofits that that want to continue to do the type of work that we're doing, and maybe in the language that people are choosing to use. I'm seeing people focus more on economic opportunity and ensuring people have that sort of same level of access. I think that there, I'm of two minds about it in different ways because on the one hand, someone said like being an activist is nothing if not being strategic. And like this is the time to be strategic and understanding that the landscape is changing. And also there are fundamental wrongs in our country and systemic racism that has impacted so many people, especially in Baltimore City, that is a core part of why we do the work and why so many people do the work and want to kind of continue to champion that mission. And so I mean for us, we haven't shifted language on our website or in our mission or vision or anything like that. And still have our commitment to equity and racial justice as part of our vision statement. But also, I honestly do think twice about, social media and certain things that we're posting or, depending on who we're applying to grants from, like how do we kind of recognize language that continue to be strategic and focusing on maybe more of the economic and job opportunity landscape while continuing to understand the core of why it is that we are in this work in the first place.
Well, thank you, Mickey, because that helps shift our order of questions, because I want to follow up on something that you said. Over the course of this time with COVID, and since COVID and the investment in digital equity and digital literacy and digital inclusion, we've realized that there are digital skills open doors for people. It really can help them change the dynamic. Under the previous administration, they identified that 63% of people didn't have a lot of the fundamental skills necessary to get a lot of the jobs that were out there that are available. And we've also realized, like through the Digital Equity Fund, through the partnerships in this room, that those partnerships make a difference. When we start thinking about expanding into other areas, because so far digital inclusion has kind of been standalone, and other organizations have done telehealth, workforce development to try to expand into it. Which other sectors, you've spoken to workforce, if you want to talk about that a little bit more, that'd be awesome. But what other sectors offer strong opportunities for meaningful digital skills partnerships and why?
Yeah, so I think, I guess a couple of things to emphasize is, I think that one, what Kenya was talking about of the earned revenue side of the work, I love that y'all were strategic about that from the beginning. And I think that's been something that we've also tried to think about is how do we ensure that, as we're going about building, I think about like applied digital skills, like it's not just learning these skills in a vacuum, but in our programs, how do we support young people to apply these to some sort of either project-based, well, all of it is project-based learning, but to either an employer partner who they're interning with, and then they're able to bring those skills to that employer, or to launching their own business or social impact venture within our program. I think that, as an organization, we also think a lot about earned revenue. And so a couple of different examples of what this looks like for us is One, we have this Made It Dent venture, so young people kind of applying skills to run this custom product business, and we have a maker space where they're leveraging either 3D printers or vinyl cutters, and then we partner with values-aligned organizations like the Be More Me conference that's going on with Baltimore City Public Schools to create custom tote bags, t-shirts, notebooks. We've done more unique projects like Ello is an AI reading company, and we partnered with them to create these custom little libraries that were installed around the city. And so it's applying these skills, like for example, it's all, there's an integration. So, the digital side of, designing in Canva or Adobe, and then, transferring that to a Cricut vinyl cutter, but then also kind of putting that together with the physical building and making, I think can engage young people to be much more kind of applied in how they think about that. And I guess the one other thing in terms of the partnership piece is that so many of, I really think part of what makes Baltimore City such a special place is we can really be the youth innovation capital of the world, where we've got these values aligned partners from government perspective and employers that are invested in the future of our young people. We've got creative, resilient, and entrepreneurial young people that I think, if they're presented with opportunities, can really take advantage of those opportunities and make a big impact in the world around them. And we've got a lot of these creative nonprofits that have been innovating from day one in our approach to problems. And I think that, if we can see each other not as competitors, but as collaborators, it offers just so much opportunity for us to really make an impact in the city.
So, in a previous life, I spent a lot of my time writing grants. Lots of grants. So much so, I'm like, I never ever want to write a grant again. But if I were to put on my grant writing hat, if I had a client that said, listen, I'm in this post-awful world, I need to find some funding and need your help. If I were doing that kind of grant research, I would think about looking for funding. This is where the intersectionality between digital equity or digital skills training and everything else. Now, in our current culture, everything you do requires digital skills. Yes. I gotta say, I appreciate and I get tickled when I hear from folks that say, I'm not getting online. I'm just not doing it. And then my favorite part is because I'm gonna have my grandson or my nephew or whomever else do it for me. They know what needs to get done, they just refuse to do it themselves. So what I would do if I were looking for funds, housing, nutrition, workforce development, obviously, anything connected to older adults, education is obvious, youth development, civic engagement, and here's the last one. Now, I am an NPR fan. I really want to say junkie. My radio pretty much just stayed on 88.1. So on the way over here, I heard Dr. S was on, but I heard a commercial for later on Fresh Air. They're going to look at the Project 2025 plan, because the president is really focused on reinvesting in families now. All I heard was a commercial. Can't tell you what it says, I'm not gonna go into that. But the last thing I wrote in terms of where I might look for funding is anything that looks like family support. So we're in an environment where the national priorities have changed. And for many of us, they conflict with our values, they conflict with our work, they conflict with some aspect of the work that we're doing, right? And so if it were me, so I'm saying this to folks on my staff, so you know I'm getting ready to sign them to do. I would look at what the national priorities are and look for those intersections. If there's going to be funding, if that's where the funding is going to come from at the national level, that's where I would start focusing. And I think the other thing, and I cannot overemphasize this, we've got to break down the walls and really get good at partnership and collaboration, right? too often, even before all of this, too often when you write a grant, the funders, and then there are a few of them in the room to tell me if I'm wrong here, but funders want to know that you have those partnerships, those relationships. So for instance, if I am operating a workforce development program, where are my participants coming from? Do I have a relationship with, I don't know, an organization that's already providing nutrition classes or any other service that they can then be a referral source for me, right? So you really wanna break down those barriers and start thinking about how you can partner with other organizations. And my favorite is you partner with an organization that does almost the exact same thing you do in a different part of town. Because what we know is, we gotta do our grant writing class. What we know is, if you sign up for you come to my organization and there are no available slots, I need to refer you someplace. If you're coming from across town, so I cannot overemphasize, moving forward, I think, in addition, if I spend some time really looking at it, in addition to these topics, partnerships, I think that's going to be a game changer for all of us in the next 4 years.
I agree with everything Penny said, and I'm also an my kids get it. Can we just listen to music? So yes, yes to all of that. I think I can't emphasize enough how important the partnerships and sort of collective impact is. I think especially in this environment where we're seeing resources dry up and there's limited, pools of other funding, the more kind of collective impact you can have with other organizations, the better. We've got 5 different organizations that are doing kind of the same thing, all coming and asking for money for capacity support for data and evaluation, for instance, right? Is that something that could be done together in partnership with other organizations and funded that way? So I think there's definitely thinking about that and looking at that is huge. And then I would also say, and maybe this is just my own personal bias because I think it's so important. Marguerite and I were just talking about this, that I think there's a real opportunity to merge kind of digital skills training with civics education and kind of community engagement and community organizing, because I think there's a real dearth of that. People don't feel like they have any power. People don't feel like their vote matters or their voice matters, and so there's a lot of apathy. And I think that's why we're in this position. And so, digital skills and the digital world, I think, has a lot to offer in terms of opportunities for engaging people, for helping people understand what misinformation and disinformation is, how to find true sources, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
I have a challenge question. Ms. Margaret, I don't mean to jump in, but I have a challenge question. Okay. So, question, I started my career at an organization called CPHA. And at the time, CPHA was the home of community organizing. We did a lot of amazing things in Baltimore City. And it doesn't exist, the organization for the most part doesn't exist now because they were an advocacy organization. We could never find funding for advocacy. So I just heard you say that is there money, is there an interest? I can't just pick on Gracious, there's some other foundations in here, but is there funding now? Is there an appetite to fund that kind of civic engagement? Because it has not been for the past 2 decades.
Yeah, I think there is. I think that there's a lot of the more progressive organizations or foundations in particular are looking at organizations that are very explicitly kind of reclaiming a narrative about what a multiracial democracy is and looks like and can be. So yeah, I think there is more of an appetite now than there has been in the past, just because of
You're ready to be a full, so you grant application.
and that's not just locally, right? I think that's more on a national level as well. You've got lots of huge, big national organizations who are wanting to make investments in that.
So Marguerite, you can follow up on that, or you can circle back around to the question about partnerships and the like.
Well, I'm gonna tell you that I agree with most of what I've heard, and just want to chime in a little bit with what happens in my community, and that includes the disabilities community, at large. And so I'm supporting people who are living with disabilities, physical as well as emotional and mental disabilities is extremely important to me. And so collaborations between the art spaces, like galleries, museums, and spaces like that with members of the disabilities community, connecting with all of the devices and skills that are digital, that allow creatives to be able to, participate in that world where they've not been able to do that before. And I think with all of the technology and workforce development that's going on, I think the arts need to be incorporated in that, and definitely bring in on all aspects of the community because of the value that they bring and the opportunity for expanding and advancing the skill set.
Thank you. We're gonna start with you this time, Gretchen. Funding uncertainties are making local digital equity work feel even more urgent. I'm sorry, not that one. That's not what I was going to do.
I'm ready to answer any questions.
Philanthropic funding is evolving, and nonprofits need to be ready to seize new opportunities. A lot of times when we come to philanthropic organizations, we're like, hey, what can you do to give us more money? What can you do to invest in the community? Well, what can nonprofits do to be more prepared to receive money, or to be in a better position to receive what's going to be, given some of the changes at the federal level, maybe a more smaller pot to draw from?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think in the sort of hyper competitive environment that we may be in because of the lack of funds, I can't emphasize it enough that collaborations and partnerships are always a good idea, but I think also having a real good grasp of your data and evaluation metrics, like being able to actually show the impact that you're having, not just outputs like how many kids came through your program and how many hours of education did they receive, but like how are they changed because of your program. And that can be really hard to do, but I think more and more we're going to be seeing funders only wanting to invest in programs that they can see are going to have the intended impact and can kind of prove that. So I think that's a big deal.
Cool. And as a funder as well, Kenny, what do you think?
Oh, what was the question?
What do nonprofits need to do to be in a better position to receive funding? And again, I know that the other two of you may not be funders, but if you all are looking for partnerships, what should other organizations who want to be partners of yours or want to engage you all, what should they do to come to the table to make it value add?
I challenge everyone to be innovative. Okay? I think your partnership should be innovative. So if you can imagine, there's a food pantry that has an online registry, and you have a conversation with the director, and you find out that registrations are down because folks don't know how to go online. Well, you find the need and you fill it. And so I think you really have to be thoughtful and innovative. You gotta talk to folks and figure out what the challenges are. So here's the thing, especially for those digital skills professionals in the room, you know best what works, right? And so folks that have not been doing this work, folks that are running after-school programs, for instance, or anything other than a digital skills program, they may not know what works. So you as the trained professional, as the person with the experience doing this work, you can help them bridge that gap. right? I think that, I'm gonna tell you what I think. Are you ready?
Maybe.
I had to sit up.
Yeah, you maybe.
I'm all ears.
I have a bit of a confession. I am officially in a long-term relationship with ChatGPT. It is working so well.
Best relationships in your life.
Oh my gosh, next to Amazon, right? This is, I can't tell you, like I have to force myself to leave the house now, everything just comes. So here's why I'm saying this. Because most folks don't understand AI. I don't understand AI. I know that when I turn it on and I ask a question, I get an answer. I don't know how dangerous it might be, so I'm not using my name. I might use Dr. Horrigan's name, but I'm not using my name. I don't know, I don't fully understand what data I should put in. I don't know any of that. And so, number one, the gap that can be filled, what I think funders might even appreciate, as a funder, I'd appreciate, if you can teach the masses how to use these tools. Folks, we all recognize that these digital skills are important, but what we don't see every day, all day long, is how folks get access to these resources. So I think as a funder, keep in mind that you all are the professional. You know how to do the work. You gotta help other folks connect to that. It's the one thing I would absolutely look for in a funding opportunity.
That's awesome.
Marguerite.
And I'd like to join in with that.
Yes, please.
I'd like to tell you that that's a great idea, but I would add to that is helping to dispel the myths about that sort of technology. So many people in my community are afraid.
Yep.
I mean, they really feel that they will be scammed out of everything they own, and left to just deal with it. And so if you can dispel some of the myths, then you'll be able to have a group that you can teach. And that would be absolutely awesome. In my community, we use a lot of AI in order to access devices and apps that will allow me to connect with community. I can do a lot of things independently because of AI. If somebody sends me a picture, I can send it to one of my apps that will describe it to me. A lot of times people will send me a card or something that's virtual, and it won't read it to me unless I send it to the app, and then it'll read it to me. So that's huge for my independence. And, it just makes such a huge difference. And in the world of art, again, going back to art, I'm involved in a program called Baltimore, the City of Accessible Art. And we feel that Baltimore should be the city where, things are available, that people with disabilities can, get in there and explore and understand what's going on with the art. But those spaces need to understand how they can do that. Audio description is huge in my community. I can go to the movies now and get headphones and sit back and watch the movie with everybody else. And there's an inlaid track that they will describe to me all the visual parts. So I don't have to lean over to my partner and say, what happened? What are they doing? So they're being disturbed, but now I can enjoy the movie with everybody else. And that happens with videos and all manner of things. And a lot of people don't know how to use that. They don't know how to access that. People don't know that on Netflix, you can turn that on. And if a movie comes on that has that track, it'll just automatically start describing it to you. But the benefit is that it doesn't just help people with disabilities. It helps, if it's for us, it's helping all.
I'm sorry, I need to talk to you after that, because you're sitting there like, oh, I don't have to bother anybody while we're watching the movie. Oh my God.
I was thinking, wow, I can watch a movie while I'm falling asleep.
Oh.
My husband would love it.
And so, that's a creative art as well, because I can go to a live play and they have people there that will describe the visual parts. And, but a lot of people don't even know that that's available. So, especially people who are losing sight as older adults, not everybody was born blind. And it makes a huge difference with what you expect and what you know can be available to you.
Yeah. Margarita, I love the point about how when things are designed for those who are most at the margins, and you're able to actually make just a more inclusive experience for everybody involved. And I don't know, I think it's a beautiful principle of universal design. A couple of the different things I wanted to respond to that I just kind of heard throughout. Gretchen, on your point on the data side of kind of what funders are kind of looking for and wanting to see. I'll say probably the first panel I ever spoke on in Baltimore was years ago about dense impact kind of evaluation, because we partnered with the Johns Hopkins Center for Research and Informative Education, and they were evaluating our shift in entrepreneurial mindsets that we were seeing with our young people in our programs, and then now they're doing that with our alumni. And so it's we've got this first alumni survey. I was so excited to share it with some funders, and some of the feedback I got from people was everyone has these self-reported, young people's kind of evaluations. You need to show more kind of results, outcome-oriented results. So then we're okay, well, graduation rates or college enrollments, and even there, I think people are probably raising the bar on what they're looking for, what does that mean? For example, okay, you've got a group of students that are graduating high school at a much higher percentage than Baltimore City's averages, or enrolling in college at a much higher average, but who are the young people you're working with? And are you, kind of working with only a specific subset? And even if you're working with students from 25 different high schools, are those just the students that are, more predetermined to go to, college or things like that? And so that's just a bar that I've just been seeing get raised on the funding side. And one thing that I also would note that has been a big part of where we kind of this whole partnership kind of originated around was the industry recognized credentials part of our work. I know there are a bunch of different people. Pass It On does some great work with IRCs. The state of Maryland has this big goal that by 2030, 45% of high school students graduate with either an industry recognized credential or youth apprenticeship. So that's really with digital hardware where this kind of partnership started, was how do we kind of support our young people to earn and achieve IRCs. I think there's a real, as we've been in that partnership, figuring out what's that balance between y'all have a set of programs running, we have a set of programs running, we want to integrate these IRCs or youth apprenticeships into our programs, and if we're doing everything together at all steps of the way, we may not be able to have the level of impact that we want to have. So I think that's been kind of an art to the partnership, is figuring out that balance between, hey, here are the things that we're going to do consistently. Design thinking is going to be a part of the experience at both sites. Social emotional learning and a supportive holistic environment, that's a part of the experience at both sites. The specific IRC students are learning are different for what they're doing in digital hardware versus what they're doing at DEN, to reflect some of where our expertise is. And I think that that type of partnership I think can be valuable, where people lean into, hey, what's the thing that we're really going to focus and specialize on, and then how do we kind of partner without needing to have to do everything together at all parts of the moment. We're actually really excited. The second tier of that grant is to do this Next Gen Innovators trainings with other out of school time organizations that are interested in integrating industry recognized credentials into their program. And so we're having a lot of learnings along the way, and excited to share that. And then the one other thing I'll mention on AI, that's definitely something that I personally use a lot. I was just having my family, where we have a dog that's, I'm Jewish, we have a dog that's turning 13. We're hosting a bark mitzvah for our dog. So I was using ChatGPT to create some good imagery on that.
13 in dog years?
13 in human years. Yeah, I guess in dog years, that's he's getting up there. He's he's getting into the 90s, yeah. So, kind of, I feel like I actually realized that just my natural kind of inclination to be okay, how do I use ChatGPT just in these little moments? Even though that's not at all work related, it actually makes it so that, the meeting I was just having right before this, we're talking about for our summer field trips, should we do buses or should we do, kind of ride shares and Ubers and, kind of with our team and doing like analysis on the costs of that with ChatGPT kind of along the way. And then also with our young people. How do we kind of teach our young people to leverage AI without just outsourcing all of their creativity to AI? I think is like a real challenge for us. I was at a conference that things I took away was what makes us human in the age of AI is humans, we have purpose, we've got some sort of like direction or a reason, that we might exist. We've got imagination, the ability to see beyond, creativity. We've got authentic connection and human connection, being able to really build those relationships, and then also social responsibility, kind of what you were saying about that civic sense of, if those are things that make us uniquely human, how do we, as our young people learn these skills, ensure that they also are developing kind of the, in their own understanding of their humanness in this world as well.
I really have to say, I think that's extremely important. I lived in India for a year, and I found it very interesting how the young people there related to the older adults. It was quite different than here. And I would love to see something happen along those lines where younger people are more open to connecting and working with older people, especially when technology is concerned. I think that would help a great deal in just community, but also with people being comfortable in learning how to use the technology. It was extremely different. I was very, very disappointed in the way the youth here will react with older adults when it comes to technology. Very impatient and feeling like, oh my goodness, you can't do this. Where in India it was, oh my God, you want to do this? I'm so happy to help you. And you can't ask too many questions. And it was just comfortable to want to know something and feel that it's a safe environment to ask the questions. So,
It's not weird. I feel like you just called me out because I'm super impatient.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's disconcerting. We older adults were not born at a time when technology was, very accessible. It wasn't even talked about or thought about. And so we're connecting with people who grew up with it, and they have no understanding. It's very interesting, and so I think as far as humans are concerned and humanity, it would just do us a great service to have all of us more sensitive to others who are doing life differently than we are. As a person who's not born blind, became blind, I had to find out that I had indoctrinated beliefs about what it meant to have a disability that I wasn't even aware of. But because I had to go through it, I realized that I was thinking those thoughts, and now it's about me. So I had an opportunity to make a difference in the way that I thought about myself and others who are dealing with life differently. And it really gave me a great sense of appreciation and recognizing that diversity is not just in technology. It's in nature and it's everywhere. And it's important to allow for it because it's always going to be that way.
Everyone's nodding.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And can I ask the
Yeah.
audience a question? We've talked about evaluation.
Real quick. Now we're going into the audience phase of our engagement. So we're transiting because when the person who signs your time sheet is like, yeah, let's move to this. That's what we're gonna do now.
Okay, so we've talked about evaluation. For the nonprofits that are here, do you know do you have good resources to evaluate your program or your work? If not, I would highly recommend you reach out to the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. In a past life, William and I used to teach a grant writing workshop. And when we got to the evaluation portion, we probably had the most questions. How do you craft an evaluation, to your point, that foundations or funders will respect and will appreciate. And I always steer folks first and foremost to the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. At the minimum, they can help you understand data in a different way. They have, I think it's coming up, they have a week-long, I heard it's day week. Right, they have a day week coming up. If you have never participated or attended, I highly recommend you do that. They have a great way of helping you understand data in a different way that I think would help you think through how to create an evaluation. And all, we said in our grant writing program, all of the local foundations are very familiar with BEDIA and the Jacob Franz Institute, so that when you write your grant application or your proposal and you mention you work in the BEDIA, the funders are like, oh yeah, we know them. They are very much a trusted resource. And quite frankly, not everyone can afford to hire Hopkins or Morgan or whomever Towson to do that data work for them. And they're just a really good place to start.
One of the other pieces to really take into consideration when you're thinking about data, there are a couple of different resources that I know we use a lot. The open data from Baltimore City and from the state. There's a lot of great data that these agencies kind of upload and just make sure that's available. We also work with the Benton Institute. Dr. Horrigan does an amazing job and has really top-notch information. And let's be clear, one of the reasons that you should probably identify some of the data that's used by the funders and the policymakers is because when you write something down, we go look at Dr. Horrigan's data, like, well, that doesn't match. And now you have to explain to me why you know better than him. And that's gonna be rough. I swear to you it's gonna be rough.
That is so
I
true.
swear to you it's gonna be rough. So making sure that if you do have a piece of data that is unique to your experience, that you're able to articulate why your data does not look like everybody else's data. Again, we're not gonna necessarily say your data doesn't make sense and just throw it away off the break, but it's going to raise a question. One of the other things that in the grant writing classes and the working with organizations that have either no budget or low budget, when it comes to doing grant writing and doing, it's not just grant writing, but the evaluation portion, is that I tell them find some PhD students. Because when I've done, in another life, I did dissertation coaching. And one of the biggest issues that a lot of people working on their dissertation had was, where do I get the data from? You know, do I just stand outside handing out surveys and see who answers them? But if you're already collecting the data, then, and especially if they're helping you understand how to explain that data or what data is important and how to manage it, then you help them because they're not necessarily going through their institutional review board in the way that they would if they were doing the data themselves. But also you're collecting data and they're helping you analyze it. And who knows, they might publish it and people are like, oh my God, they made a program. Yes.
To that end, we'll add Marylanders Online and the
Oh,
University.
yes.
We are actually working on indicators and shared metrics.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
I'm Terry Mum, from Marylanders Online, the Digital Navigation Program Manager. I'm an angry white woman with a blue jacket and black dress, like I did earlier at the elevator. Anyway, we are working on tools, resources, shared metrics, things that we can share with partners and across the ecosystem will help measure digital equity programs. So we'd be happy to partner, reach out, share, however we can.
Cool. Dr. Horgan?
I'm John Horgan. I'm with the Benton Institute. Over 60, white guy with receding hairline and blue shirt. Sometimes in my field of specialty, I'm better than AI.
Yeah. True.
But I want to make just a comment building off of a few things. One is I've done a lot of work on evaluation and metrics, so happy to serve as a resource. Part of that builds on the point that Kenya made about partnerships. In my view, partnerships need to leave capacity behind in the community. And when you recognize that, that's what you're looking at for your assessment of impact. What capacity was built how was the partnership intended to make change in the neighborhood? And so you'll measure the capacity that is left behind in terms of how it touches individuals is intended to touch from the outset, but what it leaves behind in the community is civic infrastructure, if you will. So I just offer that as a way to maybe give a somewhat different take on the notion of partnerships, not for the sake of, because we have seen this happen, partnerships become a box checked, not it's something that takes it that next step. And I think thinking of it as capacity can help take it that next step.
So, it sounds, I got you, Sam, in just a second. How many of you all will be interested in a session where we have experts come through and talk about how to collect data, how to do evaluation?
Sure.
Okay, I love it. I appreciate you all doing my work for me. Yes, Sam, go ahead.
I'm Sam Musgrave. I'm actually the Director of Development Partnerships at the Digital Harbor Foundation. I am a white woman with slick back hair, black glasses. I'm wearing a black shirt and khaki pants. I wanted to just add a little bit of flavor to Dr. Horgan's commentary around partnerships. I think the other thing that we all in this room need to acknowledge as we enter into partnerships and we discuss the concept of partnerships in a moment like this as an opportunity space is that of course we're leaving things in community, we're leaving like a thing behind, the kind of product of partnership. But internally for our organizations, that also there's a product, right? So sometimes for me, I think a lot of organizations are wary to partner because they feel like it's going to expose some of the weaknesses in their work product, in the thing that they say they're doing well, right? In partnership, you kind of are exposed. You're a little more vulnerable to understanding the shortcomings of your work. And I'd say that that's an opportunity now. Especially when we talk about data and evaluation. A lot of us are sitting on just a treasure trove of data because we've been doing this work for years, but we're kind of blind to how to use it. Partnership is a really great opportunity for that to occur. And I'd say that like we should all enter these conversations like ready to be vulnerable and ready to be fully transparent with our partners. I really want to just say like thank you to Mickey for the partnership with Dent at this point, because it has kind of exposed internally for our team some of the things we can do better and some of the things that we're seeing modeled for us done better in our community. And I really am grateful for that. So in this moment, as we're thinking about who's missing from this conversation, who's not in this room, we also have to be ready to just kind of expose ourselves a little bit to that vulnerability and be ready to really learn in partnership with others.
Yes, look.
Sharing a data plug within the Benia world. They have an analyst who is, oh, sorry, I'm Lo Smith. Hi, Marguerite. We had a phone call one time. Yeah. It's lovely to be in the same room as you. I am a white non-binary person in their mid-30s, transmasculine, wearing a black baseball cap that says abuse of power comes as no surprise from the Jenny Holzer exhibit in 1982. I love vintage. And a coyote tooth necklace and a green shirt. I am the executive director of the Baltimore Digital Equity Coalition and a former faculty member at the University of Baltimore, which is where the plug comes, that Benia has an ARPA analyst now, funded exclusively to work on ARPA data. Zoe is incredibly well-versed in both policy and social determinants of health. I'm the reason that Zoe works there now. I found them in a yoga class and was like, you need to be doing more with your life. But so if you have ARPA funding, and you're looking for a better understanding of how to continue that sustainability, as you brought up ARPA C money, Benia has a person who can help you understand what ARPA got done and how to keep that momentum going, which is really unique to any other sort of pilot fund or limited funding that's ever happened, and unique to some of the work that Benia is doing. So that's the plug to seek out Benia, go to the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, ask Zoe for their help, and figure out exactly what you can do with the information that they're sitting on.
We've got a meeting with Zoe at this week or next week to talk about our digital equity funds specifically. So while we have Zoe's attention for those DEF grantees, I'll see what's possible, how much she can potentially work with you all. Thank you.
And I mean, if you get Zoe interested on something, they'll chase it down forever, just be warned. You're gonna get a lot of weird phone calls like 4 years from now.
So Zoe is a lot like you, is what I'm hearing. Okay, thank you.
They are one of my mentees, so
Okay.
be warned and bring your coffee.
Just to let you all know, Marguerite has to step away for a previous engagement. She was gracious enough to share her time with us this afternoon before she has to leave. So there's been a lot of collaboration since with ARPA and some other things that have happened, and there's a lot of organizations in this room that have collaborated with each other, and we've been able to see that. How do you guys see collaboration impacting the future of the digital ecosystem? Because we've done a lot so far. We've talked about how it's going to be important moving forward, but like, how does that look like functionally? Because there are times where we go like, oh, collaboration, yes. And then 2 days before the grant is due, it's like, hey, Mickey, could you sign this for me? And so it's just me. No, the rest of you all haven't had that experience? Okay. Hell, some of you all have had that experience with me. Don't do that.
I've done it to people, unfortunately.
So let's talk about like, what does collaboration look like moving forward and the support of the digital ecosystem? And it's open. Who wants to go first?
Because I just remembered, I owe Empower a letter of support.
Demetrius, if you want to print it right now, I
I'm
can.
following up on that.
I probably kicked it, where's Serena? And she left. Okay, so, all right, I'm from a government perspective. I want to make sure, from a government perspective, collaboration looks like everybody in this room and then some. So let's keep in mind what our goals are. It's devices in everybody's hands, right? So the state has funded, what, 50,000, we've distributed, like 49,000 and some change, 500. We're just about done with the 50,000. Do I know where the next tranche of devices are coming from? No, but if y'all know me, I got an idea. We talk about digital skills training, and to be clear, when we set out to do this back in 2022, we knew we were not going to be the provider, which is why we created the Digital Equity Fund. But a lot of that work still needs to happen. And I'll give you an example of how to use collaboration to get some of this done. Anyone ever heard of Comcast? No. So Comcast has been, anytime we are either going to have an event, if we are just tossing around some ideas, Comcast will say, yes, we will support that. So I have to say that thus far, anything that we've needed except for some data they're not allowed to share, but anything that we've asked for thus far, we've gotten from Comcast. So Dawn, how does Comcast define or see collaboration from a provider perspective in the future?
I think it's very much like what we've already been doing, right? Like we reach out.
I'm sorry, real quick.
I'm sorry, go, describe.
Yeah, there you go.
You feel free to come up to the front of the room so you can get on it.
It's just,
You're really getting put on the spot
not
here.
even sure about the pounds I need to lose. Hi, everybody. Dawn Kierstetter, Senior Director of Government and Community Affairs at Comcast. I am a Black woman wearing a red jacket, jeans, and a white shirt. And I would just say, and by the way, background also is that I used to be the Vice President for Strategic Partnerships at Baltimore City Community College. So I get the partnership space and the importance of collaboration and and bringing together people from government, nonprofit community, and then of course corporate. I don't think there's a new formal way that we're doing things. We're just, sometimes we reach out because we hear something, or you all recommend someone to us, or you all reach out to us, and then we have a conversation and we go from there. So don't see it changing, want to still be involved. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And it's this kind of space that, I get to know more people and Comcast gets to connect with you all and hear what the needs are and how we can fit in.
So if anyone does not already have a direct line to Dawn, because you got that list of things you might need, I recommend before you leave here today, you get that.
And mind you, FCC is investigating Comcast right now. So we can get creative about how we can partner.
So for instance, when we were launching the Affordable Connectivity Program, we partnered with the state first and foremost. They had a consulting group come in, they did a consulting group, the Education Superhighway, a nonprofit that's doing nationally. But we started that relationship with the state. Comcast paid for the billboards, you paid for some of the.
Oh, the
materials.
advertising campaign.
Yeah. So get creative in terms of your collaborations. And while I'm talking about the state, so from the state perspective, because I know you all have grants coming out soon. And I have heard that one of your priorities in this next grant is going to really have a focus on collaboration and partnerships. Can you talk a bit about what collaborations look like for you from a state perspective in the digital equity space?
Sure. Brian Hammond. I am the director for the Maryland Office Save on Broadband. I'm a black male. I've got on a black and brown polo shirt. So the state was awarded $13.4 million from NTIA for digital equity programs to implement on our digital equity state plan. Out of that $13.4 million, about 11.8 will be specifically for sub-grants. And we're looking to initiate 5 specific projects. I won't go into details on those just yet. I probably should not say on this. We don't have additional funding to support. So with those 5 specific projects, it's a statewide approach. These are ISHA funding, and so there's been some guidance that's come from the federal government. I won't even call it guidance. I'll just say there's been an email from them that states,
Trying to build nice
program.
about
I'm trying to think how to say that.
Things you did last week.
Without being irritated. They're revamping the guidance around that funding, right? We can see what's going on with the federal government, what they're trying to change, and the language around things, the utilization. In fact, there's been pieces of that they've already changed. So there's certain things that we cannot use that funding for, like training, conferences, for personal or professional development. Which is crazy to me, but we were anticipating on putting out those applications May 1st. We want to stick to that, but the last thing we want to do is to put those applications out and organizations like yours start working on those applications, and then we have to come back and say, "I'm sorry, we can't use the funding for that." Now you just spent 2-3 weeks gathering data and information. So the last step I want to do is mid to late May. If we don't hear back from them, we're just going to put it out because we don't want to keep sitting on the opportunities that we have. So we're just going to put it out. We have letters right now. I mean, I've been on my laptop with the governor's office. They're looking at write letters to the federal government, NTIA, to just try to expedite things. We did host a webinar about the 5 specific programs. We can post that to our website. Please feel free to connect with me. I'll be more than happy to discuss the different programs that we want to initiate. But they really resemble some of the programs that we have with our ARPA funding. I'm not sure. There's some of you in here that have participated in our ARPA programs. But it's going to resemble that. Also, it's instrumental that it's implementing on our digital equity plan. So if you haven't seen that digital equity plan, it's posted on our website. I would take a look at that. We are looking to hire, actually, hopefully we can use wide angle youth media who's here in Baltimore to actually help us with beautifying our digital equity plan. So in conversations with them, making that a little bit more accessible and user-friendly as well. Did I touch on
Collaborations?
Collaboration? That's what you brought me up here for. Yes, so collaboration and partnerships are so instrumental, and you said it with every program that we have. And it was mentioned before, because and we're building out asset mapping as well, but we want to know, I think it's important for our communities to know which organizations are doing what in those communities, right? And for us, what collaboration shows us is that, we're not just focused on our own organization, but also assisting other organizations within our communities as well, and their local neighborhoods, communities. So it really exemplifies the need to reach every citizen that we can reach, and that's only been done through collaboration and within our own silos. Also, what we found is organizations are doing different things. So being able to collaborate creates this more uniform program that kind of reaches multifaceted approaches to the same issue and concerns that we're seeing. We really believe that the partnerships and collaborations are important. In fact, competitive grants, you get additional scoring criteria for having partnerships and collaborations with other organizations and local governments. What are those partnerships look like? But we do add additional scoring criteria in our applications because of those partnerships and collaborations.
That's the part I wanted him to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Quick question. You said 11.X million.
So,
Five.
the total award is 13.4. There's administrative costs, vendor, contractual services. The total amount that is being dedicated to sub-grants right now is 11.8.
You said 5 total grants.
So 5 specific projects.
Project, okay.
That 11.8 will be utilized to support.
So like funding categories.
Understood.
Those projects are like
So
funding.
you think that's funding categories or uses, like maybe it's.
So you're not only funding 5 projects, you're funding.
No.
Right, that's what
I'm sorry for the language. I'm still stuck in my office chair right now. So, just 5 different programs, whether that's digital navigation, tech hubs, DE plans, and local collaborations with coalition building. So there's going to be 5 key programs where multiple projects, organizations can apply to any or all of those projects.
Can you talk a little bit about the size of each award, or the range of the size of each award that you're projecting there? Maybe.
I have not created a maximum, but I will just say split that 11.8 5 ways. You're looking at what 2.3 something. Is that my math good? Somewhere around 2.3 million, give or take. A couple $100,000. We did a survey for the state of Maryland and our community institutions, nonprofit organizations, to gain their interest. And 3 were pretty significant, and so there were probably more additional funding to support those programs than the other 2 that we'll have. Plus, one of those programs we're probably just going to utilize, hoping to utilize the University of Maryland Extension to support their efforts on the digital application. So, I don't have an exact maximum just yet, but so I can't provide exactly. But the allotment, we're looking around between $2 and $3 million for these programs. Now, for the project itself, again, it depends on the kind of cost, what the specific application maximum could be for that. But stray away from multiple applications either. So.
Okay, is this now turning into?
We did not start official Q&A. We're doing a little.
Dr. Willie, put your hand down. We're not doing this. I'm not gonna ask about the grants though. I have a different question. Okay. Wait, no. We got a bunch of started. Oh, I'm sorry. Waiting for a second. Like 4 people jumping in my chest.
It's not for you, okay? So.
Oh.
So I want to say 2 things, right? First thing, I want to give a disclaimer. right? This isn't a personal attack against any organizations or anything. It's just something that I see happen all the time, right? No state agency, no city agency like that. We've been talking about partnerships, and we've been talking about digital ecosystem, right? And my comment to that is actually defining what that means. Because when I say that, I mean we might have BCIT might have community partners in this work who only answer BCIT's emails and phone calls, right? As an organization in the city that does the work, partners who we think are partners are always accessible, right? From corporations to government to non-government people, right? And I think that's something we need to explore, right? And have a separate event when we talk about digital ecosystem partners and actually holding some of our partners accountable or seeing how we can reconnect or re-engage relationships. Because as a grant recipient, working with older adults, and now we service so many different generations, right? There's other parts that our older adults can benefit from, especially in the city, different agencies, who may not return emails or phone calls. When we work with returning citizens, we see the same things, right? So I know it's an issue, but what I'd like to see happen is that as we explore ecosystems, which are buzzwords, right? I know you guys are using that, right? Ecosystems and digital partnerships, that those who are involved actually know what their responsibility actually is, right? Because they don't answer our phone calls anymore.
Ooh, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I have the same problem. I think that's really important, so can we just, all right. So I think the thing to keep in mind, and what he's being very kind about dancing around is, from a grassroots perspective, right? You have a program, your program is effective, you know it works. You go out into your neighborhood and you find partners that may not do the same work, but serve the same population. And so it just makes sense for us to partner, to work together to make it happen. Am I on the right page so far?
No. One part of it, but it's really just about, like, so I'll give you an example.
I think you're talking about.
We have older adults, right? Let me use my class for example. We have people who catch the mobility bus, right? Where the mobility people were leaving people, right? And then you call, email, they don't respond. We have people in that we service our last cohort, who get certain benefits and need healthcare, right? So in class, all you can do is read on AI, right, and teaching them how to use AI to communicate with the documents in my chart, right? And then when you pull up their my chart, you see that there's some other things they can benefit from, and they are entitled to said resources. But when you call to communicate on their behalf or with them to help them, people don't respond.
Yeah, that's not a partnership.
No. I'm talking, in that case, I'm talking about local government, right? But there's other opportunities where we've reached out to corporate partners, right? Who service the same things. And just, you can send an email, right? And not receive a response back. For people that have been identified as digital equity partners, right? Which we can have a side conversation, but I just wanted to bring up, let me dummy down, right? But I just wanted to bring up as we figure out, when we say the word ecosystem, when we talk about, partnerships, that everyone involved understand their roles and responsibilities. Because I know from personal experience, now I'm talking myself, is that when I'm in a BCIT setting or in a BDAC setting, it's collaboration. But the moment we leave these environments, it's not so collaborative.
So where I was going is some of the challenges that we've had, even as a city agency with other city agencies, is folks say they want to partner. And we started off with all these partners. But then it's one thing to partner with the Deutsche Foundation. I can have a conversation with the president and she says, yes, let's all do it. But then the person assigned to do the work has no idea that conversation was held. And so then we, because our team shows up and the room is empty, right? And so identifying who the partner is has been for us working with, just my team, working with other city agencies, government agencies. It's at the executive level, we all agree to partner, but that message does not resonate. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not see.
Yeah.
Yes. So, oh
You
my
did it so
gosh,
nicely.
it's a perfect example. So that's where I thought you were going.
No, that's
So,
perfect.
so the challenge has, for us, has been, again, I'm having conversations at the Kenya level, and then the whole team, we've all experienced this, we show up to a rec center, and the staff has no idea why we're there.
Yep, been there.
Who are you?
Say so.
You're not on the list. Telephone calls are made. So that's where I thought you were going.
Oh, that happened to me too.
Telephone calls are made. And so I think the way that we addressed it, or we tried to, where's Emily? We tried to address it is where, and again, we have a team of like 10 folks, so it's a little different. But what we try to do then is build a relationship at multiple levels, but most importantly, at that rec center level, at that senior center level, because it doesn't matter. It does not matter what the director or the agency head agrees to do. At the end of the day, we've got to get buy-in from multiple levels. And so what we've learned to do the hard and the long way, what we've learned to do is even before we go talk to the agency heads sometimes, the team will already start having conversations with that frontline person, the person that is responsible for whatever it is we're trying to impact. Get that buy-in first and foremost. That way, by the time the kitchen conversation happens, we've already been talking to Maria, and here's what she says she needs at the senior center, and blah, 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 blah. But Dawn, I see Dawn and I see Ronnie.
Speaking from the corporate lens, but also, empathizing as somebody who used to raise money, and had to hound funders, and then somebody who's now standing next to somebody that we fund. He has to hound me sometimes. I respond, but sometimes I delay because there are other pieces that of information that I wanna have. I try to give respect to respond as quickly as possible because it's Bernard and I know him and have a relationship with him. But it could be tracking down a payment. It could be, I don't know who the people are in these different roles. We're a fast moving company. On any given day, I'm scanning emails to look for the subject to see what I can quickly respond to and move on to the next thing. So we may miss things. So I would just encourage all of you, and this gentleman here, Blue, that if there is, someone that you're trying to reach, keep going. I was successful at bugging people, and I know that may sound like
So,
I'm not asking anybody to bow down. This is just like sometimes people forget, sometimes people come back, circle back.
Like
I know
when
it's
I started off by
not personal, it's not
saying,
personal, but off by it. And use a wisdom or
So,
an opinion or whatever.
that I think is one of the other pieces to do, is to make sure that as you are engaging in the ecosystem, identifying who you already know. Because there's some people, let's be clear, there's certain people like in our office, depending on what you want, is who you should talk to. And also, and I'll talk about myself first. If you want a quick response, call Serena. If you want to make sure that it happens, call Serena. If you call me, I will get to you and I will absolutely have it, but it might be a day or so. And so some of it is just knowing who to. You want to do that right now? You're going to do that right now? Right now is what you're going to do. Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, we're doing the networking part. I got to come talk to you. But really leveraging the relationships you already have to find out, because the reality is that in some organizations, there are things that are happening that you don't know about. You don't know whether such and such a person might be wondering if they're even going to have a job by the end of next month. And so some of those things play into how things go down. And so if you know somebody in this get everybody's number in this room. Do you know Dr. Sanders? Because I've been trying to reach out to Dr. Sanders and I haven't been able to find him. Like, oh yeah, no, he's on vacation, dude. You're not supposed to get him until next week. You should call this person. Boom. That may not. I know you
know me too well.
Dr. CBJ.
But you see what I'm saying? That kind of thing also becomes really effective, and it is how you leverage the individuals that you've already developed relationships in the ecosystem. Because again, certain things like, even when you're talking about other city agencies, depending on which rec center you want to get engaged with, some rec centers you need to call, make sure that the head of whoever is on board, because if you walk into that rec center without somebody downtown signing off on it, they're just gonna look at you like you're silly. There's some other rec centers, or some senior centers that they don't care anybody downtown if they've called or not. If you know the person working the front, literally I'm thinking about one, the person working the front desk, she'll make sure everything happens for you that you need. Do you know which ones I'm talking about? You know which senior centers I'm talking about in that example? Yeah, that totally undermines my point, but never mind. Most of y'all don't know who I'm talking about, so like you would have to talk to me to figure out which senior center that was. But that's not something that you can go to a website and look up. There's literally no Facebook page or that would be separate.
Maybe the eco map.
Maybe, okay. Okay, so let me do this, because what I'm seeing happening is that this was the entire plan of it, to get y'all all up and wanting to talk and want to engage, and then I can go, all right, well, that's the end, and you all can network amongst each other and talk. But what I will do is,
Wait, because Ronnie had his hand up and you had your.
I got an ecosystem.
I got
Oh.
a question too.
Stephanie's had her hand up for a long time.
Please.
Stephanie Alfie, co-executive director of Code in the Schools, and also young-ish black woman, black hair, in glasses. My question, I love this conversation about collaboration and partnership, and I love that you all have fostered the conversation about partnership, because my question really is, what role do funders, city agencies, ecosystems to a certain degree have in fostering some of these relationships? Because while we out here as grassroots organizations, we get, well, this little only knows what's happening in a certain ecosystem, like the amount of work it takes, it would be like what digital partners are in the city doing the type of work that I want to do is one thing, but you all are funding those folks, right? You all are building ecosystems with those people. Is there a role or capacity? It sounds like a question, but it's not. Is there a role or capacity that you all have as funders, ecosystem collaborators? My ecosystems in the room also know how hard it is to foster and fund ecosystems. So I love this conversation about partnerships, but I feel like we honest a lot on us of fostering the partnerships on this side of the table, where the resources, capacity, and ability to really foster those partnerships can also happen a little bit more on that side of the table. So how can we?
I'm gonna say, yes, you were right. Funders should be doing more. We're scared.
I know. I'm in Texas too.
Funders should be doing more, and they can do more. And so I would say, if like, and when I said partnerships before, what I'm talking about is like, not like you're using mobility or you're getting like meals from like so-and-so, because they're always gonna be hard to deal with. But I want to do digital adoption work for a certain population. And so I'm gonna find a healthy aging partner to do that with, right? And like the healthy aging partner can write in the devices into their grant budget, and you can put in the skills training into your budget, and that's a collaboration, that's a partnership, and that's the things that funders like to fund.
How do we?
And so I would say reach out to your like program officer if you have a funder in mind that you're thinking of applying to, or me. You can just reach out to me. I'll look you up. And say like, hey, can you connect me with some healthy aging partners, because we really want to do this work. And the funders are all connected. It's not a big world here, I'm learning. So I think, yes, I would like, if you need something, email your most responsive program officer. Email Gary.
Gary's on top.
but also recognize that some of it, the reality is, and let's be very clear, some of it is that this is part of the hazing ritual. Like, there's a lot of work that, yeah, there's a lot of work that, because everybody's application looks good when it comes on your desk. Oh, look at that. You want ChatGPT, it all looks good. So how do we know when we see an application, whether you can actually even do the things that you've listed? So a lot of it is that hazing ritual, like, oh, you've proven you've done this. You have this many years of experience. You have these people, and it's, again, you have people who are collaborating with you that we know are cool. Or goats, like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the group that's, okay, got you. And And we hold events like this, and we try to hurry up so you all can go and talk to each other and start collaborating, but I'm not in charge no more.
I had to start eating Kenya's grapes.
I would say Houston is better about it than us.
So, the only thing I'd like to add, anybody who knows me individually, or any member of my team knows, if you ever have a question, call me. And as a personal philosophy, I do not spend a lot of time digging deep into, like, who is the right person to call. If I make 1 or 2 calls and I can't get through, I'm looking at the network. Who do I know who knows somebody? That's just how I operate personally and professionally. I would highly recommend anybody, if you got a question, you can't get through, give me a call. I might know somebody. That's just how I'm from the village. This is how we get down. Now, wait, no, we got 2 questions over here.
Well, it's not easy, it's a quick question. How hard is it to get, something on the ballot when it comes to funding the work that we do?
You did not just say that's an easy question.
That's a quick question.
That's a quick one. Hard.
Whether it's on the city level or even like, we want the earmark funding to be, Empower does, we never get it. But, I've talked about how do we collaborate and come together as a group to go after the same earmark funding, but maybe the power that we would look at it if they have a bigger overall impact. So putting it out local level, how do we get on the ballot? That looks like William probably knows, but and then how do we get, do we collaborate on the federal level for earmark funding?
So I'll just tell you for my office, William owns our policy agenda. So he is participating at the, really with MDEC and with BDEC and all the decks. And we have internally, we have a few policy agenda items. So I would say for us, start with William.
Josh is there, our policy committee chair-ish, like, meeting something for the Maryland coalition, so we're happy to speak with you. But I did want to say, that in terms of partnership and collaboration and these relationships that we're talking about, we're seeing a huge shift. If we're losing AmeriCorps people every day, we're losing people, partners, long-held partnerships, and if anything, this digital navigation or partnership retention is more important now than it ever has been. So I don't know if there's policies, like we're trying to implement policies, or when we lose a partner, how do we, the capacity for everyone is going down drastically. But it's just like, we lose our digital navigator at the time when we need digital navigation working, and same with partnerships and all of that. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we don't know what's going on, but we do know that we have to keep doing it.
At the state level, you should make sure you're at the in-depth meetings where we have policy conversations.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Who has the money? Government and public, so.
Government does not have money.
Well,
Change your expectations.
well, let me say this, as a
Money adjacent.
Baltimore City, property taxpayer, I'd rather pay into something that supports what we do versus something that's sitting on the ballot. And I'm like, I don't know what that even is, but.
And you should definitely talk to William, we've been looking at that too.
Yeah, okay.
Join the deck. So for ecosystems, for holding people accountable, for finding your partners, for figuring out what you want on the ballot, what you want out of it, and also all of that. Baltimore Digital Equity Coalition operates exclusively outside of all these other structures.
Yeah.
You guys are in the University of Maryland, so you're a little connected to the state.
Well,
I have the ability to swear at anybody I want. Yeah.
I try not to.
But this is where we're looking to rebuild our connections. We've got a listserv which is new and nobody is using it to complain enough. I need y'all to be complaining on our listserv. I want to be hearing from, if somebody's not getting back to you, putting that out there and being like, hey, I can't get anybody's phone number here. Who else has got somebody? Because honestly, working at the national level for the last 3 years, we got most of our shit done by a little bit of shaming and a little bit of begging for a bigger network. So work with us, and also feel free to CC me on things. I might have Paul CC Kenya on things. Add me to your emails. because occasionally these are people who owe me something too. And if they see that BDEC is beginning to gang up on them, which is why we're in a coalition, if 4 coalition members are asking for something from Dawn, we need so much from you. And then I'm looking at, like, I have like 4 board members in the room. If 4 BDEC members, 4 board members are all coming together saying, hey, we're not getting what we need, why aren't you participating in the ecosystem? We get a lot more done. And especially if you need stuff, I most likely know someone else who is struggling with that same partner who's ghosting you, that funder who didn't give you clear feedback on that grant. Or of course, like, I have the legendary story. I once sent somebody into a men's Bible study group to get somebody to call me back. Like, I will find you.
Not to underestimate Lowe's persistence.
And so that is the thing. VDEC is here to be persistent. We are here to be collective. We are here to be a little bit annoying, even to Kenya, even to the state level. And we also interact with all the other groups. I'm not a quiet person, if you've noticed. I'm also not a peaceful person. I play roller derby. I hit people 3 nights a week. So I'm down to do what we need to get done. And like, I'm not banking on a career in politics or anything. I don't care what my reputation gets dinged with if we are getting what we need for the people of Baltimore, because my reputation is based off the people of Baltimore. I don't care about the state. I don't care about the country. Sorry, Ronnie. I love that you're just writing an email, but because I'm here for Baltimore, so come talk to me. If you're not already involved in VDEC, come find me after this. I'll get you a QR code. We'll get you involved more. And if you want to come raise hell with me too, we're putting out working groups. We're going to restart our policy and advocacy one. We're going to talk about programs. We're going to talk about partnerships. God damn it, we need money. But also, we're gonna try to figure out a way that we can all work together in a million different ways to get stuff done. So by the time we do have to go to the state, we have a clear idea of what we want. And we're showing up with like 25 people yelling for what we want, instead of just Kenya standing alone in a legislator's office being like, can we have $5 in a tree?
So I did ask for a Snickers, but
join our gang.
Yes, ma'am.
Deputy Nino, Chief Program Officer at Let's Go. Short, 5'1" on a really good day. I went with, today it's straight brown hair, it's not always straight. Wearing a blue polka dot shirt. I'm curious about the executive order that came out last week and where we're thinking that might align funding kind of related to artificial intelligence. So there's an executive order that came out saying there's going to be a priority for AI funding for AI at the children up level, and I'm wondering if that's starting to be on anybody's radar, and how do we leverage that for digital, especially on the digital literacy skills.
So I have not dug deep into that one, but one of the challenges that we have with a lot of the executive orders and the federal guidance is that much of it does not seem to be well thought out.
It's an idea.
So, okay, so those of you all who know me know where I'm working here, okay, I'm working. It has not been, it has not been well thought out in many cases. And so what that does, it provides difficulty on our part to try to plan to get ahead of it or to align with it, because we don't know how much of it is going to be consistent. And some of it, just what I've read on, and okay, what I read on it, some of it is like really big pie in the sky. Like most of it feels to me like, let's just beat China at it, because China said they were going to do it, and we can't let China do it.
I'm like, let's just read China's one, because China is this is retaliatory.
Right, so that's what it seems. And so a lot, and that's one of the challenges that we talk about in the DIEB meeting and some of our community meetings. It is getting ahead of especially these changes that are happening now, because a lot of them do not necessarily align with what we understand on the ground to be best practice and effective practice, but also practices that actually make sense.
Also, just say that my understanding, I don't know that much about the executive order, I did not dive deep into it, but my understanding is that any funding that comes with that will go through the Department of Education. So that's like
what's left of it.
What's left of it. But that's a Department of Education grant is a really good opportunity for collaboration, right? So like ready for, whatever is gonna come down the pipeline.
And I think that's what I'm thinking, like, as we sit here, is if it's not on the decent side, but if it's on the education side, who in this room do we need to be getting together so that with support to write a multi-million-dollar ad?
I'll say
Theoretically,
too, sorry,
it's
Willie.
collaborative.
I'll say too that there just aren't that many funders who fund digital equity.
Yeah.
Ronnie eventually will. One of these days.
Are we manifesting?
So there aren't a lot of funders who do specifically digital equity, which is another reason why the partnerships are so critical, because there are lots of funders who fund housing and healthy aging and education and all of these things. So, and digital, as you know, digital equity taps into all of those.
Right.
So
Would it, let me find out now, because you all may be helping me with my job. Would it be helpful for us to start having like these type of panel discussions with people from other industries, like maybe a workforce panel or an education panel, something like that would be helpful?
Oh, well, heck, I got the rest of our agenda for the month.
Okey dokey, Smokey.
Thank you all very much for coming out. This was a fruitful discussion. If you have any follow-up questions or if you need anything else, feel free to talk to William. He has all of the answers. So,
please eat some cheese before you go. So,
thank you all very much.
I ain't gonna do it.